In this video I'm going to be reviewing and demoing the Bad Dogs Audio Spider 3-in-1 preamp, DI and reamp box. Hey guys, I'm Tyler, thank you for tuning into the channel once again. If you're new around here, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, that really helps with the engagement and growing the channel, and it's much appreciated. So in this video I'm going to be looking at this little box right here, which is stuffed full of electronic goodness. It's a real studio tool and it's got so many uses. So I'm going to be running you through the three different features of this box, which are its preamp facility, its DI capabilities, and also its reamp abilities. And then I'm going to be giving you my thoughts overall on the product and kind of letting you know who it really suits in terms of real world usage and who should be looking to buy this product. So for full disclosure, this box was sent to me by Francesco from Bad Dogs Audio. He's the man behind the company. And they're based in Italy, and you'll see a little bit of me talking with him in this video and get a little bit of an insight from him about the real intentions of this product from his perspective as a designer and audio engineer. This is one of those products that I was really hoping, when you get products like these, sometimes you have to send them back after you've done the review, but I was really glad to find out that Francesco is going to let me keep this, and it's definitely going to be finding use here in the studio. So stay tuned to kind of find out more about it and learn why it's going to be staying and why I'm happy to be keeping it. So if you haven't seen it already, I did do an unboxing on this device so you can see what you get in the box, what kind of box it comes in, all that sort of stuff. But a brief rundown here in terms of features. We've got the on-off switch here, we've got the gain knob here for the preamp part of the device. We've got two additional knobs which do the tape and synth simulation, which just add a little bit of character to your DI preamp signal. We then got a reamp button here, which is a pad very much, and then an input and an output. So this works like a typical DI, so you into the device and then out of the amp signal jack. On the back of the device we've got two XLRs. The first of those on your left is the DI output, and that is as clean and clear as a signal as it can possibly be. So it's literally straight from the input with as clean a possible signal path then to the rear here to the DI out. And then we have the pre-out as well. So that is taking into account the preamp section of this box, including the tape and the synth parts, and then that is where you'll find that sound. So that comes out of the preamp section here. The one thing I did find confusing at first was that it was marked pre-out, and I'm so used to seeing it on amps, particularly bass amps, where it's got the DI with pre and post. But in this instance, pre is effectively the DI output, and post is, what would be post on a bass amp is the pre-output here on the device. So pre in this instance means pre-amp, and the DI is the pure clean signal straight from your instrument back out to your DAW or wherever it's going. So rather than me talk too much about this product, I'm going to put a little bit of an interview that I did with Francesco, the man behind the box, and I'm going to embed that right now so you can listen and understand maybe the angles that this is coming from in terms of the way it's expected to be used and some of the thought process that went into building this device. So what was the idea behind the Spider then?
The Spider basically was born for me, for my projects, because I needed something to record a clean guitar while I was playing on the amp, with the sound which I thought it was good for the song I was playing for. And then I said, okay, let's build it with a preamp which is all discrete, a preamp that I like. Is quite a design I'm quite proud of, to be honest, because it sounds very good to me. I know I'm biased, but...
No, it does sound good. It does sound good.
And while I was at it, I also added the DI, which I know is a bit redundant, because you say, you already got a preamp, why you need a DI to go to a reamp, to a preamp. And I said, well, since I'm doing it for not just for myself, but to put it on the market, if someone wants to go to his favorite preamplifier, he can go there. Or maybe he wants to go to a preamplifier, then a compressor, an EQ, and record the track processed that way. he also has the choice to record a clean track, processed track, and the track mic'd from the amp, which I thought it was it was very comprehensive of many possibilities, which then you can work on later on the mixing stage. And another feature which I wanted for me for the clean track was to have a reamp. Because usually when you record something, you are in the mood of what you are playing, but then you realize that the sound wasn't the perfect one for the song. So instead of recording it from scratch, and you lose all the feel that you were having while you were recording it in the first place, I said, let's put a reamp. So I've got my clean track is a backup, and I always can go back, put my stomp boxes or whatever, find the right sound, and then record the next sound, which perfectly suits my songs. And that's the main idea behind the Spider, which I came off. And the tape and synth switches were just an afterthought of the original inception of the product, because since I wanted also to pass through in analog some tracks from the DAW, I made the input of the Spider able to receive also balanced signals. And because I always felt that when, especially things that are born inside the DAW, like drum machines or some synthesizer, they get a new life when they go out through an analog gear. Yeah. They sound more soulful. And that's while I was doing that, I said, okay, so I'm getting an analog feel from this track, but why don't just put two switches which allow me to have a more broad range of possibilities while I'm doing that? And that's the reason of the tape and synth.
So with the tape, what can a listener expect to hear? Like, what are the changes that happen to the sound once you engage the tape?
Tape was trying to simulate saturation from a tape recording machine. So when you want a more saturated sound, full of harmonic, but yet still that sound, not changing, not processing the sound, I think that's where I will use it. On guitars, I like it, or the guitars, also on drums. So yeah, for saturate the sound a bit, just to give it that little extra sparkle, that something more.
Yeah, sure. So it's capturing more of the saturation elements of tape, rather than necessarily so much does it have any effect on kind of the high end or the low end or anything like that, like tape does, or is it just really focused on the saturation?
No, to be honest, this one is just saturation.
Sure.
I wanted to do what you said, especially turning on the gain. As you know, when you turn up the volume, the tape saturation has got a bit of high-end roll-off. Yeah. I also have a circuit to do that, but I couldn't fit it in.
No.
It's very little, the Spider. I wanted to keep it little, but if you look inside, it's full. The layout is full of stuff. Yeah. I didn't have more space, so I needed to resort to another solution. So I left a bit out of that circuit. But as I said, it was not my primary intention to introduce this. So it's just a bonus, let's call it.
Yeah, it's a little bonus. No, I'm not surprised, because when I first got it, and I think you saw in my unboxing video, I was stunned at how small it was. Because of all the features that are on the website, and when you spoke to me about it, I thought it would be bigger, because this is smaller than some DI boxes that we've got here at the studio, and they have got literally just pass through. So to have all these features in such a tiny thing is really cool.
I did it this little because I wanted to build something that you can put next to your desk, just a benchtop device which stays there. You can access it very easy. I didn't want to do something cumbersome.
What can we expect from the synth button, and what's that really doing to the sound?
Synth is a harmonic generator. It is much stronger than the tape. Tape, as I said, is a saturation, so it adds harmonics to the sound, but they're very subtle type of harmonics. Whereas the synth is, especially on the low end, is tailored to affect the low end much more than the high end. Is just harmonic generator, odd harmonics, so you can hear it very well. Everyone needs to find its own application for, I guess, for this kind of effects. I've done also some samples which are on the website on a drum. It was a real drum, not a drum machine, acoustic drum set, and I got quite an effect out of it, which I like it, because especially on kick drums, it gives this extra blue sound, this roll, which anyone needs to dream where he can benefit from it, I guess. It's the nice thing about our jobs.
Yeah, definitely.
They experiment and fun.
Get to do it differently every time if you want to. So the first thing I want to do is to look at the Spider as a preamp. Partially that's kind of mostly more in line with what I've done on this channel previously. Obviously in more recent times I've been spreading out more to the studio-based things as well. But specifically instrument preamps and preamplifiers I've covered a lot on the channel. So I thought I'd start here and with bass guitar as kind of the most natural fit. So on the Spider we've got the gain knob that only affects the preamp out, and we've got the two XLRs out as well, so I'm kind of taking care of the DI element here as well. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you what the DI sounds like in itself. So that's just a clean DI signal straight from the input jack to the XLR. It's as clean a signal path as possible. And then I'm going to go into the preamp element of it, turning up the gain knob and showing you what the tape emulation could do on bass guitar. So what you're going to hear now is the clean DI signal straight through. That's the clean DI signal. Now we'll switch over to the preamped signal. So with the preamp I've got it set using the gain knob, because the gain, as I said, affects the preamp signal but not the DI signal. So I've got it set here. So it's kind of roughly about 2 o'clock on the dial. Getting a little bit of the green, well, predominantly green light with a little bit of the orange light. So that's the preamp on its own. Now we'll add in the tape layer as well, and that'll give it more saturation. With both of these, the more gain you crank into it, the more of that effect you get, the more dirt you get on the preamp signal, the more dirt you get on the tape signal. But right around here is kind of where I like it on this instrument in particular. This preamp without the tape, then with it engaged. I really like it. Just adds a little bit more mid-forwardness because it's a little bit more slightly saturated, a little bit more distorted. It just brings forward the punch. It's a tiny bit louder, I think, maybe in the room as the result of that little bit of extra level from the saturation. But it feels really good. It sounds really good. Gives it a little bit of something old school without being very obviously changed and affected. And I think that's a really good thing. This isn't something I've done on the channel before, but I'm going to play a little bit of guitar on this one as well. Not that I'm any guitarist by any means, but I want to show you guys what it can do on guitar as well, because I know this is going to be a big market for a lot of people that are looking at this. Probably bigger than bass in a way. Guitar DI signals don't happen a lot of the time. They always bring me back to kind of Nile Rodgers-y, cheeky type playing, that kind of stuff. But it's nice to have the DI option quite a lot of the time, particularly given this box does reamping as well. So it's worth thinking about that from that perspective and taking a DI signal when you're tracking. And so this gives you the option to have the clean DI signal, which I'll show you in just a second, or take the preamp signal, have a little bit of enhancement to your DI guitar signal, and then put that through another amp if you're reamping, or just use the direct sound as it is, or use one of the many kind of built-in DAW reamp options as well. So as I say, take it easy on the guitar playing, but this is the DI signal. This is the preamp signal engaged, again in about the same place as the bass, so about 2 o'clock. Then I'm going to add in the tape saturation option now as well. So that tape option there just kind of brings the mid-range forward a little bit. It sounds just a bit fatter and it's a little bit more distortion. There's a little bit more of a dirty kind of clean sound to it, but it's not significant, it's just a nice little amount. You can drive it harder if you want to with the gain knob, but I think generally I want to kind of keep it right around that area, just add that little bit of extra fatness, and then it gives you more options down the road, unless you particularly want a specific style of sound right at that source. The other option is the synth button, so I'll show you a little bit what that can do. For this in general, it's going to cause just kind of a little bit of harmonic excitement, a little bit of distortion, a little bit of noise really added to the sound, and I think it has a very specific stylistic, a very specific aesthetic going on with it, and I can imagine it fitting more like a punky, rocky type thing. So as I say, forgive the guitar playing. When I want a guitar done around here, I normally get someone in that can play it properly. But just to get by for now, hopefully that's given you an idea of some of the stuff you can expect from the Spider with the preamp options using instruments direct into the front of it. Now I want to take a look at the reamping feature of the Spider. So what I've done is I've recorded this using the DI built into the Spider. So that is the clean DI signal. This is recorded with. I'm going to play it to you, just a little section. Then what I'm going to do is send that out and reamp it. Just goes along those kind of lines. So why would we want to reamp? Well, for instance like this, where we've got a clean DI signal, you might want to, in a recording situation, blend it with an amp signal to just give it a bit more character, give it more harmonics, a bit more interest in general in terms of the sound, and probably will help it cut through in the mix in the end as well. So I've got it set up here. I'm sending the signal to downstairs here in the studio, but on your interface you probably do it just out of outputs 3 or 4, or another pair of outputs you've got on your interface if you're at home. But yeah, here in the studio I'm sending it out downstairs via an aux, and I'll show you how it's set up downstairs in just a second. So let's go and see that. So down here into the live room, it's a bit darker, but hopefully you'll be able to see me clearly enough. So now we're down here, I've got the Spider on top of the amplifier. The signal chain is to go from the wall box, which is sending the signal into the input of the Spider. The reamp button is in. The reamp acts as a pad so that it can deal with the hotter level from the desk back into the Spider itself. Then it goes out of the 2 amp output into the input of this Ashdown touring amp here. Beyond that, we then have this EV-RE20 recording the bass amp itself, and that's then recording the signal back to upstairs so that we've got the reamp signal as well as the clean signal. Currently the computer upstairs is playing the signal, so what I'll do is to dial it in, and what will happen, it will just literally record the signal, and then you get an idea of the clean signal versus the reamp signal. So I'll mute it, and then I'll just dial it in, probably a bit more gain to get the saturation and the colour from that, and it's all in the kind of higher, more mid-rangey, higher bass positions, so that it's giving us that character that will fit in a mix rather than super lows or super highs. So now I'm back upstairs, let's give it a listen to these parts. So this is the clean signal. And the reamp signal. So that's the difference between the two. You've got that clean DI sound, which you can then blend with the amp sound. And having the Spider as a reamp box is really nice because you can go back and do it. And it makes it really easy. You've got the right levels, you've got the right balance, you've got the right type of inputs and outputs, which makes life really nice and easy for you. So next I want to talk about using the Spider as a tone box. So for tracks that you've pre-recorded, say you have an audio interface like a Focusrite, a Scala or something like that, something pretty simple, doesn't really have any analog character to it or anything like that, or you're using a software instrument like I'm going to show you in a second, then what you can do is send the signal out to the Spider and send it back in and use the preamp facility of the device and the tape and synth feeling buttons to give colour to that sound and give it a bit more of an analog character rather than keeping it as a pure digital thing, or adding digital saturation, modeled saturation in your DAW. So what I've done here is record an 808 bass synth. I think that's a good example for this because it's going to also, by adding saturation, it's going to take something that's quite clean and give you a bit more character, make it more audible on most speakers as well, which is one of the primary uses of saturation when you're recording. In terms of the setup, this is just the 808 on its own, not coming back through the Spider. So this is the original clean signal from Alchemy built into Logic. So that's an idea of the clean sound as it is. And then what I've done is, as you can see here, I've got it routed to output 3 and 4 on the desk here. That's then being sent out by an aux to channel aux 1 and then back in through here. So the aux is going out and this cable here plugged into the input carries that aux signal. That's going into the device. I've got the reamp pad on so that it's the right level so that it doesn't hit it too hard. And then at the back I'm recording back into Logic. So it's coming out of the preamp DI signal back into Logic, and then you'll be able to hear the saturated sound using the preamp itself, the tape button, and of course the synth button as well. So I'm going to hit play now. It'll be the clean sound all coming through the Spider. I'll just turn the preamp up so we get a bit of saturation on the preamp side, then I'll engage the tape and the synth and you can hear the two as well. So here we go, this is just the preamp on its own, all coming through the Spider. So it's fattened up the sound a little bit, I think. And bring it further up so it starts to get into kind of more the orange territory. A little bit fatter, a little bit furrier type maybe. then right up to the red now. So there, right at the top, starts to then take out some of the low end. It's kind of getting very distorted, obviously, as you can hear. And also we are starting to get a lot of attack that's almost kind of clipping, rather than sounding like quite a punchy, crisp attack that we kind of had most of the way through the range of the knob. Let's add now the tape and the synth settings. I'm going to switch between the two so you can hear the difference between them, and really it's up to you to find where you want to use them. They're going to add colour, they're going to add some distortion, they're going to make the overall sound louder, perceived as louder, whilst also taming some of the peaks. So some of the peak levels won't be as high on the VU meter there on channel 1, but overall it's going to sound louder. And that's one of the real benefits of using something with an analog character, with saturation. You are going to get more colour on the sound, but you're also going to be able to get your mixes louder, or different parts louder, perceptively louder, without losing headroom. This is it, just clean preamp, then I'll engage the tape, and then I'll switch out for the synth, put them both together, and that'll give you an idea of what you can do in terms of colouring tracks. Hitting right around the orange there. Now engage the tape. Or just got a little bit fatter, there's a little bit more colour to it. A bit more texture really. Now the synth button. A very different colour to the tape, it's very obvious. I'm going to try backing that synth down a bit. Quite like it there, it's still within the green, pretty much just slightly hitting the orange on the lights there, and that's just giving it a little bit of edge, a little bit of tiny bit of distortion, harmonic content. Back to the tape. Tape in itself is just a saturation, so it's a little bit louder anyway, there's a few more dBs every time you engage it, so that's got to be balanced out. And there we've hit the distortion point. That's back to the preamp signal. As you can hear there, I think it's got very much the same character as the preamp gain. As you'd expect, that tape's really just saturation, so we're just getting there a little bit earlier. I think it's quite a rounded saturation. It's not like a gnarly, horribly mid-rangey, or high mid-range sounding distortion. It just distorts quite smoothly and gently until you get to the very top, and then it's kind of smashing up against it. And then go to the synth switch and just push it quite hard. For me, it gets to a point where it becomes a little bit unusable to me on certain signals. But if you had a monophonic bass synth or something that was just one note, I could imagine this being something quite cool to blend in, or maybe a parallel, or something like that. So here we go. So there for me, it kind of stays quite consistent. It's not quite the same as the tape where it really does increase. It really acts more like a blend really with the gain on the synth. There's just a little bit more of it. It doesn't really change the character of it too much to my ear. It's also third order harmonics. So for me, I think I'd use it on more percussive sources, so things like drums maybe, rather than necessarily on something like this with a bass synth. We got a lot of pitch because those harmonics kind of sound a bit more atonal. They don't really, they kind of sound like they stay in the same place on the same notes. They don't really portray pitch as well as second order harmonics do, for instance. So for me, maybe I'd be using the synth on reamping some drums, reamping percussion, something like that. That's more about the transient and less about the actual pitch itself. I mean, an 808 drum loop itself would be a really good idea, for instance. But yeah, so that's an idea of what you can do with this in terms of taking tracks that are super clean out of your DAW, adding a little bit of colour with this box, and then putting them back inside your DAW, recording them back in. So now you see what the product can do. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about who I think this product really suits. It's definitely a product aimed at the studio market, people that are, you either have your home studio or you are working in a studio like this, for instance, a commercial studio, where you have people coming in and out, and this box solves a lot of problems for a lot of people a lot more cheaply than it would if they had to buy those individual things. So the first instance is the preamp. Most people, you just kind of have your clean, clear mic preamp on your, for instance, audio interface. And if you're recording at home, that's fine. But having this to be an external preamp and add a little bit of colour, a little bit of those good things that we love about preamps, saturation, and maybe a bit more weight to the signal, then this covers that for you. It also then covers being the DI for you. So if you are recording guitar DI, or particularly bass DI is the most typical, but also mono synthesizers, mono keyboard signals, then this takes care of that as well. So you then have a really clean, clear DI signal if you need it. You've got a way of leveling the signal into your audio interface. In addition, not only is it a good DI, but it's also kind of a twin DI, because you've got the preamp signal that can have some colour on it, and you've got the crystal clear original DI signal that can then be blended together. You can either maybe add an amp sim to one of them, or use the clean preamp signal, for instance, on bass, and then take that second DI and reamp it, put it through a bass amp as I've shown you already, or reamp it in your DAW. This box takes care of that for you, so you're getting both of those signals, giving you more options yet again. The tape and the synth buttons are really cool. They're just a nice addition. They make it better than a standard preamp or standard DI box. As I've said before, I think the tape one I would use more regularly, because I think it adds a really nice character to the sound, and so many of us look for that tape type sound, a bit of saturation, a bit more colour and life from very clean DAW sounds like I've shown you earlier. And then the synth button, I can see, as I said earlier, using it on percussion, perhaps. I don't think, for me, that would be getting used on everything, but I think that's one of the joyful things about it, is it's an extra. As Francesco described in the interview, it's not really a main feature, it's just a feature that was worth putting on there and he did it because he could do it. Finally, in terms of a reamp box, this box is really solid, crystal clear, absolutely completely noiseless, and that is in big part thanks to the way that it's been engineered, and it works incredibly well. In terms of what I've been looking for, this box just is incredibly good value. I was considering getting a reamp box for a very long time, but having it inside this box alongside the DI and the preamp, it's just a bargain for me, and a really useful box to have around the studio. It's nice and small, it's nice and compact, and that is also something that can't really be undervalued. So there we go. The people I recommend this to most are people that are using a simple interface, something like a Focusrite, and would like to have the option to add a little bit of colour to their signals, but are also looking for a DI box and perhaps the option to reamp in the future. I'd also really highly recommend it to people that don't have 2 or more of these boxes, because it's a bargain way to get 2 devices in one, as well as the third. So if you are one, you know, for instance, you've got a preamp but you also want another DI and a reamp box, then it's hard to look past this because you're getting all of it inside one. So overall, a really great product with very little to complain about, and if you are looking for 1, 2 or all 3 of these devices, then this is definitely a good place to start, and I highly recommend you check it out. So that's my review of the Bad Dogs Audio Spider. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Could you see yourself using one of them in your own studio or your own circumstances? I'm going to be leaving a link to the product in the description below, so head over there if you're interested in the product. It will take you to the Bad Dogs website where you can purchase the device. My Instagram will be linked below me right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.